Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 19 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels from Sandusky, Ohio, and I'm thrilled that my guest tonight is able to join us. I'm delighted to welcome Dani Marshall of the Western Bulldogs AFLW squad to the podcast. Welcome, Dani.
Hey, Craig. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've been, I've been tickled pink since, I got the contact information about your dad, and I got in touch with him, and he passed along the information. This is, I think, a great opportunity to talk to someone who, is doing some wonderful things right now. And if you're listening in the United States, one thing that you should know is Dani is the first American woman to play in the AFLW. She is a pioneer, a trendsetter. Now, I should let you know up front here that, about 60% of the people who are listening to the show are in Australia, and about 35% are in the US. So I've got a few other spots in Canada and Europe, but not a whole lot. But so you're going to have a lot of Bulldogs fans who are probably going to be listening to this. But this past year for you has got to have been just an absolute whirlwind.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you taken the time with the quarantine to kind of just catch your breath with everything that's gone on and just gone, what the heck was I doing a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, a year ago at this point, I was getting ready to leave for Australia. So I was about a couple weeks away from getting ready to try out. And now I've had a season, and we're looking forward to the next one, hopefully.
That's amazing. Have you kind of looked into that metaphorical mirror and thought to yourself, you know what? I've accomplished a heck of a lot in this last year.
Yeah, I guess so. If we think about it that way, try out, get a contract, move your life to Australia. Husband packs up the house, rents out the house, quits his job, moves to Australia, gets a new job. I think we've done quite a lot, like all those things that they say are like stressful situations and everything. Done a decent amount of those in a year.
Yeah,
I changed jobs, he changed jobs, moved countries.
Now would probably not be the right time to say that my grandparents lived on the street, one street over from where I live now, and the house I grew up in is about 10 blocks away. So
wow,
I haven't gone very far. Haven't gone very far.
That might be where I ended up, but definitely not where I am now.
Yeah. So you're playing Australian football at the highest level in Australia right now. I'm not going to get into the semantics that we were talking about earlier there, because I don't want to get you into hot water or anything like that. But this is where did you get this desire to play this game? Where did this come from?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been into sports in general. So in college, I was just on ESPN looking for some sports to watch, soccer specifically, and then, the little thumbnail on the side showing highlights of the different live sports was on, and there was a game that I'd never seen, and I was like, well, I guess I'll check that out, and it was Footy. I think it was I don't remember honestly who was playing, but I just was like, what in the heck is this game? And looked up the rules, started watching it, probably followed it for a season or two while it was on ESPN, and then it wasn't on ESPN anymore, kind of faded to the background a little bit, still playing college soccer. But then like, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 years later, my roommate that had watched it with me texted me and was like, hey, I got recruited to play on a footy team in Houston, Texas. There's one in Arizona, you should play. So, that's kind of where the playing started.
Okay.
But the desire to actually take it further probably didn't come till a bit later. So
okay, because some of the I read several articles about you. I found kind of an essay that you wrote as well that I'm going to make reference here in a little bit, and some of the things that I had jotted down. but you were a gung ho athlete growing up. I've read in some of these articles that you were kind of a little, not necessarily distraught, but disappointed in the fact that it wasn't looked upon favorably for girls to play American football, because you had talked about how you really like the contact of that sort of thing. When you were going,
I'd always wanted to be like a free safety in football and just hit people. So, footy seemed like a pretty good opportunity to do that.
That's that's a great point. Yeah, I'm. There aren't very many, at least that I've run into in my lifetime, that female athletes that would say that sort of thing. But some would. I mean, we had a couple girls at the school where I worked that could probably have contributed on our boys football team for sure. So
definitely not the majority, but there's a few of us out there. But it is one of the biggest barriers to recruiting in the States. You'd say tackle, and then all of a sudden they're like, I don't know about that. So it's definitely not as common as I would like.
So you're saying, So real quickly, back to your friend who ended up playing for Houston. Did the two of you ever end up competing against one another in a game?
Yeah, we did. We played against each other in 2018 Nationals.
Okay.
She's with the Houston team, and I was combined with the Calgary team. So.
And may I ask who won?
We did, but not by much. So.
Okay.
And we kind of tried to stay away from each other during the game, so it's we didn't interact a ton. But I mean, I was rucking and she was playing in the wing, so there wasn't really much of an opportunity, anyways. But she's a terror on the field. She's definitely one of the fastest players I've played sports with in my life. So she can be pretty sneaky.
One of the things I read in the essay that you had written, that was called "What the Heck Is This Sport?" You said that when you were in school that you looked at gym class as being an opportunity for you to prove that you were a better athlete than the boys, and that in most cases you usually were. And you had another
in general until you got to senior year of high school and they all finally grew. I usually got to. Athletically, not always, but skill-wise in general, I probably was.
You had a quote, and I actually highlighted on my notes that I made here, where you said in there, you said this competitive nature had its downfalls, though. When one of my friends told me that she didn't want to room with me during a summer basketball camp because she was afraid that you would become too intense and then it wouldn't be fun, and that you thought that you had to adjust as a result of that. How did you go about adjusting that level of intensity, in terms of like when you were not on the field, but still maintain it, or on the court in this case, and yet still maintain it there?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely something that was kind of a difficult transition. I'm a competitive person by nature. I'm a very serious person as well. So even when I'm not necessarily competing, I'm still serious. But I think I kind of just had to realize, what was really more important to me in the end. Was it my relationship with my friend, or was it winning? And, my personal perspective on life is that people are really the most important thing. And so when I looked at that and realized, that my friendships are more important than winning in the long run, that kind of helped me be able to just, switch on and switch off. With certain people when I was going to be competitive, and when I, which people I could be competitive with, which people I couldn't be competitive with, and what that looked like, to show them that I cared about them and what they were interested in, and not just, winning at all costs. Obviously there's a time and place, when you step on the field to train and you step on the field for a game, you're going to get serious, you're going to play. Especially, in the AFLW, everyone expects you to be there. But, when you're playing high school basketball, with your friends that maybe don't want a career in sports, you kind of have to look at it a little bit differently, and that kind of thing. And just, again, people are the most important things in life. I won't be able to be an AFLW athlete forever.
Right,
But the
right.
relationships I have with those people, they're going to last far longer than that. So, kind of realizing that in the long-term goal of, sports for me is almost, obviously to, look back with no regrets, but also to look back and see the friendships that I've made and the people that I'll know for the rest of my life, to be friends with and have those memories with, that's just as important. So,
Yeah. And I hope you're still friends with this young lady. Is that
yeah, yeah, no, I mean, I would be able to reach out to her on
okay?
Facebook and have
Terrific.
a chat and say, hey,
Terrific. Yeah.
it's we made it through the rest of high school basically
Good,
as really good friends. So I
good deal.
think, I mean, I definitely adjusted a bit for sure.
Fantastic. Yeah, it reminded me. It reminded me of something that happened when my son was younger. I think he was 9 years old. And he'd played in like the little local baseball league where the dads are coaches and that sort of thing. And he came up to me at the end of the season and he said, Dad, he said, I don't want to play baseball with my friends anymore. Which I had no idea what he was trying to say to me. And he said, I don't care what the snack is after the game. And that was his way of saying, I want something more than just this, come out here a couple days a week and, kind of goof around and whatever happens kind of thing. And, he played, that next year we found a travel team and he played travel baseball for the next 8 or 9 years. He's still great friends with these kids that he had played ball with previously, but they went their separate ways, and some went and played travel ball at a later date. But it was a great, it was just something that reminded me, your comment about the intensity, because that was the way that a 9-year-old dealt with it.
Yeah.
It really just it just really resonated with me and made me think about that.
Yeah, it's definitely hard when your friends don't take it as seriously. I think, like in college, again, I could still talk to some of my teammates, but for the most part, my friends were outside of soccer. And in soccer, I respected my teammates. I worked hard for my teammates. Um, but that was kind of the relationship, as it was a focused, dedicated, pushing each other relationship. And then we kind of all went our separate ways outside of soccer because, we wanted maybe some friends that you could kind of more relax with than be competitive with all
well,
the time. But
yeah, that's
sometimes they don't always mix. But
it's fun. It's
sometimes
funny.
you need to realize that.
It's funny you mention that because I reached out to your soccer coach at the Colorado School of Mines where you went to school, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get a response because everything is shut down. I didn't know if he'd be checking his school email, and I felt very fortunate that I did. And he wrote back and he said, because I'm always looking for like some fun anecdotes and that type of thing. Just I had a young man who played with the LA Dragons for a year or two. And I think he was actually in Arizona for a year at one time, but then he went to Australia to go work there for a year and to play on a local team there. Well, I reached out to the local team and said, "Have you got any kind of fun anecdotes about his time there?" And they put together like a dozen real fun things. Not embarrassing because I wasn't trying to put, I'm not trying to find zingers or to make people feel uncomfortable at all. When I'm talking, that's not the purpose of what I'm doing here. And, so I found that that's a kind of a good way to go. But your coach said that you were a very mature young woman when you played for him, that you were probably one of the best players that he's ever had at just going out on the field, giving it her all, and then leaving and not letting things affect you too much one way or the other. He said, sure, she liked winning a lot more than losing, but I think at her core, she understood and still does that it's actually is more important how you play the game rather than the result. And he said, and this, I thought this was the biggest compliment part here. He said, I truly wish I could be better about that, to be more like you in that respect. Yeah, I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and that win-loss column does definitely affect him a bit, for sure. But I don't know. I think for me, that's, a really big compliment from him, obviously. And then, but for me, it kind of stems back to just like the core of how I live my life and what
Right.
I believe in my
Right.
faith. And that just stems from, I guess, my relationship with church and God, and knowing that, sports are an amazing gift that I've been blessed to be able to play at a high level. But I also know that, I was created for more than just, playing sports. And like I said, the people that you meet and the relationships that you have and playing the game well, to honor and respect your teammates
Mm-hmm.
is, the biggest part of, why I play the game.
That's fantastic. That is that's impressive, and I think that I think when your coach hears that, he's gonna think, yeah, that's the young lady that played for me. That he's gonna say I'm spot on with the comment that I made. So
Yep.
you finished up school in Colorado, and I'm assuming
Mhm.
you then found a job in Phoenix.
I finished up school and I actually found a job down in Pueblo, Colorado, which was about 2 hours away from where
Okay.
school was. I
Hmm.
was dating my future husband at the time, so I didn't want to move out of state. So would drive up just back up to the school every weekend, and then we moved to Arizona after we got married, and he got a job in Arizona.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you
Yep.
started, if I read everything correctly, you started playing with the Hawks in 2018.
Yep.
Okay. So
Yep. I did.
and this was a new game to you. You were a phenomenal soccer
Yep.
player. You were a great
Yep.
soccer player.
I
Well,
got-
I'm going by what your coach told me. I've not seen any video, but I did rewatch the Eagles game this morning. Um, that you played. I rewatched that one this morning. But at what point when you started playing with the Hawks did you get to the point where you kind of felt comfortable with playing this new game? How long did that take?
well, yeah, so my first time with the Hawks, we just played like an AFLX kind of style thing. It was like
Right.
sevens.
Okay.
And I just kind of hung in the back, had no idea what was going on. If I got the ball, I'd just kick it as far as I could, um, kind of thing. Just, get it out of the back and clear it. So that tournament was just kind of finding my ground. I think we just played 2 games, just kind of finding my what the heck is going on. And then we traveled down to LA for a game, and I think just that game and then the next game, I really started to feel like, okay, like this is close enough to a mix of the different sports I've played that I kind of found my feet a little bit. So
Okay.
probably about halfway through the 2018
Yeah.
season, and then really found my form probably at Western Regionals in Sacramento.
Okay. So how did you end up on the AFLW's radar then? How did they, because there are lots of players playing the game here in the States as amateurs.
Mhm.
How did they figure out, hey, this Dani Marshall is somebody we should take a look at?
Yeah, super, super random. So about a month after Western Regionals, I was playing another game in LA because they're the closest ones to us. And we combined with the Denver Bulldog women. So the Bulldogs were coming out. They didn't have enough, so we came out to join with them. So one of their players, Sarah Roner, who now is with the Centennial Tigers, she had really been wanting to go over to Australia for a while, and one of their like kind of coach leaders of the club, James Waddell, he's from Australia, so she'd been kind of talking to him a bit. And then randomly, super randomly, one of James Waddell's friends from Australia, Cameron Richardson, happened to be in LA that weekend and happened to come hang out and happened to watch the game. So when they all got talking about Sarah wanting to come out to Australia, he was like, yeah, like I think have a shot, but that kind of tall girl that was running around on your team, like maybe you should get her to come too, like if we're gonna try this.
Okay.
So I didn't know anything about these conversations until um, maybe about a month later when, like, I didn't really know Sarah. I just had played with her that one time. And about a month later, she gets in touch with me on Facebook and says, "Hey, like, would you ever think about playing in Australia?" And I was like, um, I wasn't even honestly sure exactly what the AFLW was. Like, I wasn't, but I was like, well, sure. I mean, I love to compete. Like, sure, we'll talk about it. And she's like, okay, well, there's this guy named Cameron Richardson I want you to get in touch with. And he kind of has an idea, kind of plan of how he thinks we could do this. And I was like, okay, sure. So Cam and I start talking. Um, he used to work for the Bulldogs back in the early 90s. He's been a Bulldog supporter his whole life. He still knows people at the club. So he was like, okay, girls, like, no problem. If you guys fly out here, like, I can get you, at least a few practices, with the VFL team.
Okay.
So we started talking in, I think, September of 2018, kind of talk through, the winter, kind of watch the season, see how it progresses. We were kind of waiting on a few things, and then we ended up buying tickets for May to come out and play in May. So yeah, he kind of lined up the stuff. So we had sent film to the coaches, and he'd been getting it out to all the VFL teams and stuff, not just the Bulldogs, to see if we could get some trials. But Cam's probably the one that, he loves women's sports. He's a women's cricket manager, so he just loves women's sport in general and loves footy. So he was just rapt to be kind of a part of the journey,
Okay.
and he was super excited to get that all rolling.
Okay.
But that's kind of how it came to be.
So do you understand cricket now?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
because
I
I've watched.
had visited Bangladesh before, and Bangladesh is very into cricket. And the World Cup was on while I was there, so learned a decent amount about cricket there. But yeah, I ended up actually staying with Cam. Cam had a guest room, and I stayed in that. But I mean, you can't get away from cricket if you're in Cam's house. So
Okay,
I
yeah.
definitely know more about cricket than uh, most people probably.
So, so you go to Australia for a tryout, and first of all, at this point in time, how long have you been married, if I may ask?
uh, for almost 5 years at this
Okay,
point.
okay. So your husband, how does he react to that? And I've actually seen the interviews with him, so I know how
Yeah, so you kind of
I
know.
kind of
I
have an
mean,
idea.
honestly, like he's the best husband like I could. I mean, obviously that's why I married him because I think he's the best. But yeah, he's always been just super supportive of me and my, athletic um dreams, I guess. Like he knows how competitive I am and how much my soccer career meant to me. And if he could give me anything, he'd give me anything I wanted. And to let me, go have that trial and be supportive of me. I mean, like he was, pretty much all in. He's like, there's, I wouldn't do anything to stand in the way of, your dreams if this is a possibility. So, um, yeah, he was, pretty supportive all the way and always loved to see me play. Like he's the best fan, and
That's
everyone always comments. They're like when they're sitting with him, they're like, "Oh, he's just so into it. Loves watching you play. Is super excited." So it's a blessing to have someone that's that supportive of you and your dreams.
that's terrific. And someday down the road, though, 10, 15, 20 years from now, he's going to say, "You see that pool table right there? I'd really like to put that in our basement and turn it into a rec room. What do you think?" And you'll think for a minute, well, you said, remember that time that you went to.
No, see, that's the thing is Ryan and I are like so similar. It's
Okay.
pretty funny because everyone always jokes like for me, together time can be him playing Minecraft on his Xbox and me playing Minecraft on my computer. Whereas most wives would probably be mad that their husband's playing Minecraft for 6 hours. I'm like, oh no, if you play Minecraft for 6 hours, I can play Minecraft for 6 hours. So it's just fine with me. But yeah, I mean, the pool table in the basement would probably be my idea
Okay.
before it would be his idea, and
Well, there you go.
I'm the one that asked for the Xbox for our wedding. So there you go.
Well, I actually was going to ask, a little bit later on in the interview, and I'll get to it now, that as far as how you're biding your time, and you're playing. You've got the Xbox and you're playing. What may I ask? What is the go-to game besides Minecraft, which I
Yeah, on the Xbox, we do a little bit of Rocket League and a little bit of Overcooked. Rocket League's like a soccer with RC cars, and then
Okay.
Overcooked is like an award-winning multiplayer game where you have to like make orders for people in your restaurant, but there's different
Okay.
obstacles, like the kitchen moves around and you have to like still cook everything, and so that's pretty fun.
I've seen
And then
Rocket
I'm
League
actually
before.
more of
I've
like
seen.
a PC gamer, I
Yeah.
guess, so I still play League of Legends.
Okay. So
Yeah.
no AFL.
So yeah, Ryan's usually on his Xbox, and then I'm usually on the PC.
Okay. So you haven't made the jump yet to the AFL Evolution 2?
I'm terrible with controllers.
Okay.
So no,
Okay.
I have not started playing that, but I've a lot of my teammates or some of my teammates have it, so I get a lot of Instagram chats about them doing it, and Moody likes to do some she likes to edit videos, so she likes to take like pictures of us in real life and paste them over the characters' heads and make videos of us. So
And
it's
I've watched
pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I've watched a couple of videos on YouTube about it. I have my son's old Xbox 360 sitting here. It gave me the red circle of death.
Oh, the red ring of death.
Yeah, back about November. So I keep telling him, I said, I know there's a new Xbox coming out in November of this year, so you're going to upgrade, right? You're going to upgrade. He said, well, because I'm hoping he'll give me his old Xbox One, because I'd like to get the AFL game. I'd like to try that out for myself. I mean, I grew up in arcades when I was in high school. There was an arcade a few blocks from my house. I was there all the time. So I'm somebody who's, video games are not necessarily new to me. But you get to it's
original.
Yeah.
The original video games.
Yeah, I mean, I don't I play the I'm not any good. I've never played online with anybody because I'm terrible. But like his Call of Duty games, and there was a zombie game that I would play, and I guess it's a collector's item game, which was the last college football game that EA Sports did back in 2014.
Oh yeah.
He said
before they had to not make it anymore.
Yeah, he said don't ever do anything with this game. Protect this one, because he said it's worth some big. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
You head to Australia, and how did the tryouts actually go? Evidently, they went very well, because you and I are talking right now.
Yeah, apparently.
So what you as you said, your first contest was kind of like on an AFLX type field, but did you ever end up finding yourself on a field? Did you end up playing on something that was oval sized here in the States before you left?
I mean, Nationals of 2018 was about as close as it got. Okay. We played 18s, but I think the ovals were probably slightly smaller than regulation. So but similar.
So when you got out to start practicing, you walked out on a regulation size oval. Were you looking at it like, oh my goodness, this is massive?
Not really. I mean, full size soccer fields aren't that much smaller.
Yeah.
And if you do the math, because I do the math, it's like they also have 7 more people to fill the extra space. So it's similar to the ground you have to cover as a midfielder in soccer. So I wasn't too intimidated.
Okay. Yeah, because I
just loved that they had an oval. Like, my favorite part of going to Melbourne was flying in and looking out the window and seeing all the ovals everywhere. I was like, there's an oval, there's an oval, there's an oval, there's an oval. Oh my goodness, there's ovals everywhere. This is amazing. I'm so excited.
Now, were you?
I don't have to explain to every other person what Australian rules football is.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Watch AFL app. I've had that for the last 4 years, and I actually finally figured out this year that it's actually cheaper to become an international member of the Cats and get the scarf and that sort of thing. It's actually cheaper to do that. Plus, you get the access to the Watch AFL app. it was $25 cheaper to get stuff
Oh,
from the
cool.
team. So if you became a team member.
Oh, bummer. That just is the worst discovery of all time.
Yeah. So so I'll be a member, until I'm not following footy, which I don't plan on that being anytime soon at all.
Anytime soon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, when you made this decision to go to Australia, your husband might be the most supportive husband in America or now in Australia. But were your parents a little skeptical about this? Did they kind of give you a little look like, really? You're going to do what? Or were they gung ho?
Really. I mean, I don't know if like gung ho is the right word,
Okay.
but I mean, we'd been, a 12-hour drive apart for 4 years now, and they've always known that I was pretty independent, and they love watching me play sports as well. So as much as obviously they'd love to have me in the same country, they also, they're also just really supportive and have always, been the parents that tell you to fall, you can do anything you want to. You might as well have a try if you think this is something that you can do, and just make sure it's the right thing for the timing of your marriage and your family and what that kind of looks like. And
Right.
they were planning on coming out to visit before the whole COVID thing, so the excuse to visit Australia isn't the worst one ever. So
no, someday I hope to make it a trek there. I actually that time that I was in the Navy, my first cruise, we were supposed to make 3 stops in Australia. We were supposed to go to Hobart and to Perth and to Sydney. And the war between Iran and Iraq broke out, so we didn't get to any of those places. So yeah. And it would have been in the summertime anyway, so it would have been cricket season anyway, so I wouldn't have seen, and that was 1983. So I didn't really know much about footy. It was ESPN was carrying it at that point in time because that's really pretty much all they had on their program at the time. So when you get to to the club and the club makes a decision to sign you, and you start, you're at the point now where you're getting ready to start up the VFLW season last year, because that runs during that ran, if I'm not mistaken,
men's
from what would be our summer here in the States, kind of into the fall, right? If I remember. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was that like to actually step into a game there, and were you able to compete at that level quickly, or is it something where the game was faster than you thought it was going to be?
I mean, the first couple trainings were definitely like pretty intense. Sarah and I talked about it afterwards, and I was like, I don't know why they would want to take either of us when they'd have plenty of Australians here that are already just fine at playing footy. But I think, the first game I scored 2 goals, so I guess I adapted just fine. I think just with the high level soccer background, playing midfield in that kind of an environment, it's a different game, but I don't know if like it's any faster than the soccer. Definitely faster than the footy in the States, but not necessarily faster than the level of soccer that I'd played.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that just like my experience in other high level sports was very useful, because I knew kind of what to expect, I guess. Okay. A little bit more than maybe I would have otherwise without the soccer and rugby and ultimate frisbee backgrounds. And yeah, just, and again, the competitive nature, you got the adrenaline going. You're like, look, I have 3 games to make my mark. And
right.
You just do what you got to do. So
had the VFLW games not gone well, and they went well because you were, in the lineup the first game in the AFLW season, but was there a possibility where they were not going to keep you around then? I'm not sure exactly how that works. Was this kind of like on a trial basis at that point in time?
Yeah, it was basically just like we decided to take a risk, take a chance, and see if we could, get some interest,
Okay.
get some trials with some teams, and kind of just leave it there. See if they wanted us to come back later. See if they wanted us to come back in October for like the combine or whatever. But yeah, I mean, again, kind of with my outlook in life in general is, this is something I want to do. It's a chance I want to take. But again, you know, there's more to life than sports. And if God hadn't wanted me, to be here to be playing footy here, then maybe he would have closed that door. But and I would have been okay either way. I even told Ryan that I'm like, even if Ryan had said no, we have a good job here, we have a house here, it's really not worth it to make the trip. We wanted to start a family. Um, I would have been okay with
Right,
that
right.
just because, that's all important stuff too. It was kind of one of those things that, best case scenario, I make a team. Worst case scenario, I got to play VFL footy for 3 games. I got to meet a lot of new people. I got to see Australia, and then come home to, the life I love in Arizona. So
And
it's kind of a win-win situation for me, either
yeah.
way.
So yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. So, you once you find out that yes, you are somebody they're going to keep around, um, how soon did you start interacting with the other players on the team, and did they welcome you with open arms? Because you're an outsider, and I don't mean like like from another planet, but
Yeah.
you're the first person from this country to go do
Yeah.
this. Were they
Yeah. Yeah, they honestly were fantastic. I mean, the AFL girls train with the VFL girls
okay?
anyways. And the VFL girls had all been super welcoming, and the AFL girls were too. And obviously, it's kind of a novel thing, kind of fun. But I definitely was lucky because I've heard stories from some other Americans that maybe didn't get quite the reception that I did. So, for the girls from the Bulldogs to just be so welcoming I wasn't sure if that was going to be the case again because of some of the other Americans' experiences here, but no, they were honestly really great. And then as soon as I got my contract signed, I actually signed it while I was in the U.S. and then went back for the end of the season. And yeah, once I went back, it was just like hey, like let's grab a coffee, let's get to know each other, like all that kind of
Right,
stuff.
right.
A girl took me out for my birthday. So they were definitely amazing from the get
So
go.
in many ways, it was like that freshman year in the dorms at college where you're meeting all new people and you got a whole new crop of friends.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely. Which is super fun. Like I love it. I love meeting new people and getting to know them and talking to them. So it was awesome just to have, and the knowledge that now I'm coming back and it's going to be a permanent relationship. It's not like the first time when it's like, am I going to stay? Am I not going to stay? Like, I'm back and they know that I'm going to be their teammate. So it makes it a lot easier to, spend your time and energy on someone that, is going to be around for a while.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's good. But I mean, I think obviously I don't think I would have been as well received if I hadn't shown that I was a capable player, um, kind of thing. Not just the novel American, but also someone that is dedicated to the sport and the team, and is someone that they're going to want around. So
Well, and in your first AFLW game, a few minutes into the game, you've got um that pass inside from, I think her last name is Burnside, if I'm not mistaken. Is it Ellie Burnside? Blackburn. I'm
Blackburn,
sorry. Sorry about
Blackburn.
that, ma'am. To where it came inside, and it didn't even look like. I don't think you kicked that off the ground. You kicked that in the air, did you not? Because
I gathered
okay,
and kicked from
okay,
my
I, I
hands.
I couldn't see it from there. Then
Yeah, the
okay,
one of the angles it looked like I off like a bounce
yeah,
basically, and then one of the angles, like I think the Channel 7 one got it where it looked like it was still bouncing her in the air, and then the Fox one briefly showed me
okay,
gathering. I was actually probably more proud of the gather than the
mm-hmm.
kick, just because I hate picking the ball up off the ground. It's terrifying. Um,
Yeah, because
so I was probably more proud that I actually picked up the ball cleanly than the kick.
yeah,
So
there's somebody getting ready to there's
good.
somebody else that wanted to be a free safety, even though they didn't know what it is, that's ready to wrap you up and put you on the ground. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's and it was yeah.
yeah,
So that had to be just a great feeling. I mean that not necessarily validating, but that was just almost cathartic. Like okay, I've got that out of my system. I'm here, I belong, and I'm let's go ahead and do this. So that and
yeah,
that
definitely
was
is.
I mean that was a and actually I and you know what I'm going to kick myself here because I had Ellie's name written down here correctly on my notes because a few days ago there's a website I ran across called thewomensgame.com that actually ranked that play as one of their top 10 plays of the AFLW season. Ellie's entry
I
yeah
did not know
Ellie's
that.
entry into I'll put a link to the site on the show notes for this when it comes out. But yeah, they had your first goal as one of the top 10 plays of the season. And it was great to see.
I mean, Ellie makes it look good.
Yeah.
She's doing a little bit of selling candy and running around
Oh,
everyone, and I think hers is probably the cooler part, but I still had to
well, I mean
finish it, I
that
guess.
move she put, I don't know who she was. She put a move on, but that person I think is still standing in that spot. And if you're listening, I apologize.
Yeah, they bit
Yeah,
hard.
they
They
did.
bit
They
hard.
did. But now that the season has ended and it ended before it should have, because you still had what, one more round to play, at least two more
Two
rounds.
more.
Okay, sorry about
Yeah,
that.
two more rounds.
But now that it is over, what's the most important thing that you learned about footy this year after your first year playing?
Oh man, I learned so many things this season.
Well, it doesn't have to be one then.
I mean, this year for me, there was definitely a lot of flexibility. I got thrown in a lot of positions that I didn't necessarily think I was going to be playing in, going into it, just with injuries and stuff. So I think that's one thing I learned is just like with injuries, the game is just so unpredictable, what the team's going to need, what's going to happen. So just, being willing to be ready to do, whatever is needed. You might think you're going to play full forward and then you end up playing, outside halfback or
Uh
something
huh.
like that, or ruck like I did. So it
I've
was it was
I've seen you do
definitely
that. Yeah.
an eye-opening thing, um, to see like how big of a deal, especially in the women's game, the injuries are, and how that can affect a team and what that looks like um, and that kind of stuff. And just the differences in what different positions and the structures and what that looks like. So just playing a more structured game, I think I learned a lot about how to be a better teammate in within a structure. So I think about
Yeah.
footy. I
Well,
think that's kind of what I pulled out of the
did the
season.
and what do you learn about yourself after this?
Um, I mean, I learned that, people see me as that competitive driven person. That's kind of what I got told is like, hey, we're throwing you in this position because we think you'll compete and we think that you'll give it your all, no matter what, whether it's the position you want to be in or not. So, I mean, that's kind of nice to know that other people also kind of value that about you. When you have some people that don't like when you're so competitive, it's nice to be in a spot where they're like, that's what we really like about you is that, you're going to compete no matter what we ask you to do. Um, and I think also, I think this year I was a little bit timid in, maybe correcting people or coaching people just because, I'm new to the sport, I'm new to Australia. Like, what do I really know about what we should be doing, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's
but realizing, like, it's kind of weird to say, but just learning that, like, I am one of the older players, whether or not I'm, the most knowledgeable about footy is one thing, but knowing that I understand what it takes to compete at this level and to be able to hold other people to that standard, not only just in the example that I set, but also maybe in conversations that I need to have, with teammates. I think that's something that I have that I can bring to the table just from, my experiences as a high-level soccer player or on other teams, that's something that I can bring to a team, and hopefully we'll bring a little bit more of next season.
And I, somebody who I follow, and I'm not a Pies supporter, but it's just natural that I would follow what Mason Cox does. Have you
Of course.
had any opportunities to have any conversations with him since you've been there? Has he reached out to you and said, "Hey, here's what you can expect being the first American here"?
We've chatted a bit on Insta. Like, he reached out to me before my first game and, said good luck and all that kind of stuff. So that was good. We've actually probably talked more in the US than we talked there. I've seen him at, the Nationals.
Right.
That we've both been at as he comes to, watch his brothers run water, all that kind of stuff. So a little bit more maybe in the US than here, where I'm kind of I prefer to fly under the radar. So I'm sure I could have reached out a little bit more and whatever, but I'm fairly happy letting him take the take the reins.
And he has done that because he has, first of all, since in the few years that I've been watching, he has developed an Australian accent. Yeah.
Yep, he's got a lovely mixture of Australian and American.
And he became he trended tremendously here in the U.S. this past, actually it might have been earlier this week, because with all the sports shut down, and you had round one of the AFL season, and ESPN used to carry a single game, and then Fox Sport 1 and 2 would carry a game here and there. Well, they started carrying 3 and 4 of the women's games. And I was putting all the schedules onto Facebook and Twitter saying, hey, if you're here in the States, this is the game I keep talking about. Here's a chance to watch it. Well, Major League Baseball had shut down, the NCAA, the NBA had shut down as well. And there were a handful of AFL games on. And there's a guy who has a podcast who used to be the punter for the Indianapolis Colts. And he watched this game. He'd never heard of Australian rules football before. And he just was engrossed by it. And just, for the next several days, his podcast was about footy and just why did I not know about this game? And he actually had an interview with Mason Cox about 3 or 4 days ago to, kind of just get the, hey, America, here's kind of the basic rules of the game. And he now is referring to him as Coxzilla. Cause he's, 6'10", that sort of thing. So Mason Cox is now a,
and he had a pretty good first game this year too. So that's helpful. Like his game number 1, he did really well. So it's good.
And he made a comment, and I'd heard it before, but it was a rather funny one where he said when he first started playing, with the guys the guys out on the field were trash talking him and, oh, you're terrible and you stink and that sort of thing. And he said he got to the point where he just looked at him and he said, you know what? I've been playing this game for a couple of years. You've been playing it your entire life. He said that shut him up pretty quick.
Yep.
Yeah. Now this is kind of an obscure thing that I ran across as well today, but the AFL is in Ireland as well. They have an AFL Ireland, and they actually named their AFL Ireland named their AFLW Player of the Year, and they actually named Sarah Rowe from the Pies. I don't know how the voting worked, but she beat out your teammate Ashley McCarthy by 3 votes, 370 to 367. So Ashley almost won this, and there was like a 200.
Well, they didn't ask me to vote, so I think if they added mine in, I think
I don't know.
Probably,
I don't know how the voting went, but they had the top 5 people listed there, and it was 370 to 367. So I think with that being the case, I'm going to go ahead and take it upon myself right now. And I'm going to congratulate you, Dani Marshall, for being named unofficially the U.S. AFL American Player of the Year in the AFLW. Congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you.
You, you,
I really appreciate it. It's like when my grandfather tells me that
you
I'm
know,
his favorite granddaughter.
and I'm
So,
assuming you're the only
you know,
yep,
being the only one, I
yep.
suppose
My mom does that with my son.
I get
Yep.
lucky on
My
that
mom does
front.
that with my son. Yep. He's her favorite grandson. He's the only one. Yep. So,
No,
yeah,
the only one. You know, you're the best and the
exactly.
worst. So there you go. I get first on the list and
Exactly.
last
Yeah.
on the list.
Now, the last thing I wanted to get into to this, and I'll ask, and we can always edit it out here if need be. With the shutdown of the league right now, there have been some people who have been tossing out ideas, and these are people who are who have been footy fans for a long time, who are what you would call purists of the game and such that look at the
Hmm.
AFLW as something that is that shouldn't exist. And there are some people who are saying that the AFL should stop supporting it and should just not have it be around anymore,
Mm.
which I think is completely wrong. Um, but there have been some, there seems like those voices are very much in the minority. And I ran across an article from last week, and I don't know if you know this gentleman, but I watch him every week during the season. He won the Brownlow in I think 1988. A guy by the name of Gerard Healy. I don't know if you've seen him or not before. Great commentator, and
Hmm.
he said that the AFL should be fighting really hard to keep the AFLW alive, or risk making one of the greatest mistakes of the competition. And your coach, Nathan Burke, was quoted in the same coach, and it says here that he issued a warning against undercutting the women's competition, and he said that they've been at it for a point to this point now, that there would be an uproar if they did anything to jeopardize it. And he said what a lot of people don't know is that what this has done is it's brought a lot to local football, because seeing the female players out on the field are inspiring young girls in Australia to play this game, and they because they've only seen guys playing. And it's this is kind of me editorializing there, but he finished up. He said, "For me, it's a marketing campaign to increase the strength and the eyeballs on the game that has been an outstanding success. It's more than just a competition for women to play in the AFL." So some big names who are coming out saying that that it's important to keep this league going. It's because I know you don't want to see it to go away. I don't want to see it go away, and I know that every little girl in Australia doesn't want to see this go away. And it's
Hmm.
and I know this has turned into a
Yep.
real downer here, and that's not what I really meant to do. Um, but I ran across a photo back when the AFLW season was getting ready to start, and it was a couple little girls who their parents or I'm not sure which parent it was, but their parents were Tigers fans, and they had just received their junior membership cards for the AFLW for their team, and the looks of just excitement and jubilation on their faces was it's the kind of thing that the AFLW should, if they do like a montage of the kids' faces of excitement and why this is important. This was a picture that should be on there, and it was just it's a I don't know, but it's something that really needs to to be looked after and kept going, because I think it's that important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I play in it. I don't want to see it go away. I love competing. I think there's a lot of women that were just, that have been fighting for this for a long time that didn't get their chance to play, and now there's those of us that are playing. But I mean, I agree, with my coach. He's got a long-term view of this, and I'm kind of the same mindset. Like, yes, it's amazing we're giving women the opportunity to play sport, but for the AFL as a broader business, if you're
Right,
thinking
right.
about it like that, because that's really what it is. It's something that's out there to make money and jobs and all that kind of stuff. But as far as what it's done just for the AFL and will continue to do for the AFL is you basically just doubled your income base. Like now, instead of just the men watching the footy, you've got the women watching the footy. You've got advertisers that, you know, maybe wouldn't have paid for advertisements before because no women are watching, but now that now they'll sponsor because they know that there's going to be women that are, you know, into the game. There's going to be women attending games. There's going to be women watching the games on TV, you know, and especially like Sydney, I think, I mean, it's not a huge footy, you know, city, but because now that women can play, Sydney's actually been one of the fastest growing places for women's football. And so now not only has the AFL started to reach just more women in Victoria, but they've since developing leagues in Sydney. Now Sydney's becoming more of a footy hub because now there's women playing there. So it's really for them in the long run to shut down that competition and to now, you know, maybe shut the door to these women that have started playing in the past 5 years, you know, hundreds of thousands of them. It really shuts down a line of, you know, camps and revenue and things for them that they, you know, they didn't have when half the population was excluded from the conversation. So I think for them in the long run, they're going to need, you know, it's a good business idea, you know, that will far outweigh in time. And I think, you know, it's up to them whether they want to, you know, put it on hold or if I just think the momentum lost from this would be a real bummer for them because it's been going so well. So, you know, obviously not just for me playing, but for, you know, one of Ryan's things that he loves about me playing is he's like, one day we get to tell our kids that, you know, you were the first one to do this, the first American to play in this sport that, you know, hopefully will be more well known by then. And they'll be like, oh my, you know, that kind of stuff that is worth doing. And then, you know, just for families, you know, guys used to come watch the games and their little sisters didn't want to watch or they, you know, were bored. But now you've got brothers and sisters kicking the ball together while they're at the game. And, you know, girls come see me playing, you know, see me training at the Oval and they're like, oh yeah, I can do that too. So, yeah, I think it's bigger than just, you know, those of us that are playing currently and, you know, the future generations and what it will do for the sport in the long run. I think it would be a bummer to see it slide.
Right. And that's why I said at the beginning, you know, you are a pioneer. You know, you're a pioneer in terms of, you know, being from the U.S., but also this has only been around for 4 years. This is gonna take a decade, 15 years from now, you know, before it gets established. You know, and again, there's, you know, right now the setup is that I believe there's the last 4 clubs that don't have an AFLW team are coming into existence next year. Yeah, because there's, you know, because they have, you know, 14 of the 18 right now, and the other 4 are coming in next year. So you'll have.
I'm pretty sure not till
23. I thought it was next year. Okay, I could be wrong. I might be wrong on that.
I don't think so. And especially after this,
that's what I was wondering is if they would, you know, if it was next year, if they would possibly look at pushing that back then, because, you know, you're.
Yeah, I think with the agreement we signed, it doesn't look like it would be possible to add another 4 until 2023. Pushing it with 4 this year was already a lot. I think they're planning on waiting, but obviously I'm not, you know, with everything that's going on right now, no one's really certain. So maybe they will decide sooner is better or whatever. But from what I know, it's probably not next year.
Well, your coach sent me what I thought was a great story, and I didn't know if that's one that you would want to share. It you know, would kind of show.
Oh, it's a fantastic story. I love this story.
Do you want to tell it, or do you want me to tell it through what your coach wrote? Because, you know, this is you know, this is going to confirm for people just how wonderful your husband is.
Oh, that
exactly.
Ryan
This is going to confirm
ever.
that.
Yeah. I can tell it from my point of view because I have a few more details that make it even better. So, you know, all that fun stuff.
Before you start,
so
is he sitting right next to you right now? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, he's not. He doesn't mind this story. I have other stories that he
Well, we
minds, but
definitely do
not
not
this
want to
one.
talk about those.
No, no, we won't. But we can.
Okay.
This one's a really good one. So you can intro it if you'd like. But um, yeah. So this story, my soccer coach was definitely a part of. So Ryan and I had been dating for about a year and 3 months at this point, and had been before that we were best friends through all of college. So we'd known each other a while, but um, this is our engagement story for those of you that are wondering. So yeah, dating a year and 3 months. We usually celebrate Valentine's Day late just because Valentine's Day itself is, busy and everyone's doing something that night and, sneaks up on you. So we usually push it back. So it was beginning of March and, we had kind of late Valentine's Day plans. We went to like a nice restaurant. We got some steaks. We were all dressed up. And then after that, we had planned to go watch Frozen with some friends. But as we were driving to go watch Frozen, he like passed the place where we should have stopped. And I was like, what? He's like, oh, we're going to go like get dessert first. And I was like, well, I think the movie's starting now, but like, all right, cool. So he keeps driving and he drives up to our college's soccer stadium. And we get out and he unlocks the gate somehow and we go in to the soccer stadium and it had been snowing, but there was a tarp out and there was a mug of hot chocolate and there was a cherry pie. So we like sit down, and eat the cherry pie, drink the hot chocolate, just start reminiscing about college and soccer and his track and everything. And then we had this kind of tradition of like slow dancing while we like discuss stuff sometimes. Like if we ever need to have like just a discussion about something, we like slow dance. So he's like, hey, let's go, have this conversation that we need to have. And I was like, all right. So we get out there, he pulls out his phone, pulls out some headphones so we can like listen to music. And we start listening. And then when it comes on, I start just bawling immediately and we're out on the center of the soccer field at this point, and we're listening to the song, and I just start bawling because the song is Marry Me by Train. So I'm like, like, what is this? But it wasn't only Marry Me by Train. This is Ryan for you. Like, he loves music. So he actually recorded himself singing his own ukulele track and his own bass track. And so he actually recorded the song and him singing. And then he actually added our own, like our own verse in the song, for it. So we were out in the middle of the soccer field and like, I hadn't noticed, but like during this whole thing, the lights were coming on because it was nighttime. So the lights of the soccer stadium were coming on. And what I didn't know is that my soccer coach like was kind of involved in it. So he had given Ryan like the combo to the lock to get into the stadium. And then he
had
also
already
had
unlocked it for him. Yep.
Okay. So anyways, he gave him the remote. He did the remote lights. So he was at a park that was like overlooking the stadium with his daughter. And she just thought it was the cutest thing ever. So anyways, when we were out in the middle, Ryan had like texted him and said, okay, we're going to go now. And obviously he could see it too. So he turned on the lights like while we were slow dancing. And then, yeah, but Ryan also was amazing because I actually surprised him a day early for the weekend. So he hadn't finished putting together everything. So he had to like rush everything, but he still got it all together in time. And he had his friend that had set out the pie and the hot chocolate with a camera. So we got pictures of all of it. But yeah, he did a pretty good,
good for him.
Pretty good
So
proposal.
yeah, I think you're right. He's a pretty great husband. Yeah. So that is,
yes,
that is very cool.
Yeah, I tell people that are like, engaged, like close to getting engaged, I'm like, you don't want to know my husband's proposal story until after you propose, because it'll put too much pressure on the guy.
I mentioned to you in the little note that I sent to you this morning, my wife taught school at a preschool that was run by the White House. And like 3/4 of the kids that were students there,
Mhm.
their parents worked in the White House, and I proposed to her in front of all of her kids and all of their parents. So that went, that was
Hmm.
not quite as cool as what Ryan did, but wasn't bad. My wife only played. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he also knew that if he proposed to me in front of people, I said I'd tell him no, and he would have to do it again. So he knew that
Okay.
that was probably not the way to go. But
Well, I'll tell you what, I've run through my whole list of questions here that I wanted to talk to you about, and I can't thank you enough for taking now about an hour and a half of your day to sit down and talk with me. I truly appreciate it. I don't know if you have any other things that you wanted to close out with and at all, or
no, I mean, I think we're good. Obviously, you
okay,
feel free
yeah.
to edit what you need to get it down to a reasonable length, and
Well,
what stood out to you.
I don't usually cut a whole lot for that. I'll try. No,
I appreciate you having
I'm
me.
thrilled, and like I said, I've read several interviews, and I if nothing else, this helps to reinforce. Hopefully, there's some young kids that end up listening to this that are in Australia that realize that there are great players like yourself that are playing this to to help to ensure that this goes forward for them, and maybe it inspires people here in the States to actually get out and look at the USAFL and participate as well. So like I said, I think you're doing a great service
absolutely
on two continents right now. So I truly appreciate you coming on. I'd like to go ahead and thank my guest, Dani Marshall, for taking time out of her day, to sit down and talk with me. Like I said, I'm thrilled that we've had this opportunity, and I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it wasn't too stressful. Hopefully it wasn't too stressful. I try to.
Absolutely love to share the story and talk about footy. Say hi, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. Hello, Ryan. So, what's he? Yeah.
Oh wow, that's an American.
So is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's American.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Yep. And actually,
that's why it's called a yank on the footy.
Oh.
And actually,
I don't know.
Your friend Frode
Dusky, Ohio.
is actually looking at the possibility of starting a podcast of his own. He went out and bought equipment just recently. He sent me a picture, because I told him a few weeks ago. I said, someday it's going to become inevitable that you and I end up having a podcast together, and we call it Fighting Like Cats and Dogs. Because
oh yeah, oh my gosh, that's so good.
So
totally good.
Yeah.
The cats.
So we'll see if that happens. But he's been a great resource. He's been great to talk to on here. And like I said, I truly appreciate you taking time out of your day. And I don't know if you can hear this, Ryan. You set the bar very high on proposals for your friends.
Oh. Thank you.
Yeah.
Vic wrote a letter to him and said that's his favorite story of me.
That was a great story. Ladies and gentlemen, I honestly cannot tell you how humbled I feel knowing that you are turning in to listen to my show. I cannot thank you enough. If you're enjoying the podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider sharing it with your friends. You can find links to the show in the show notes, or they can find it by putting a yank on the footy into their favorite search engine. Don't forget that while you can find all the episodes for this podcast at yankonthefooty.podbean.com, you can also find it, as I'd mentioned, on your favorite podcast provider. Now that you've listened, I'd hope you consider giving it a review on the podcast host that you're using, or leave a comment on the Podbean app. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. I'd love to get some show ideas from you, some possible guest ideas. Don't forget that you can reach me at yankonthefooty@gmail.com and on Twitter at yank_on, as well as on Facebook and Instagram at @yankonthefooty. I'd also like to thank Mr. Joseph McDade for the use of 2 of his great pieces of music. Mr. McDade creates some fantastic tunes, and I'm thrilled to be using the pieces Elevation and Winter's Mist. You can find him and his music at josephmcdade.com/music. Again, Mr. McDade, thanks a bunch. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank Dani Marshall of the Western Bulldogs for being my guest for this episode. And don't forget that while many of us are fans of our teams, deep down we're fans of a game that we love, and that's the game of footy. And ladies and gentlemen, we're at a strange point in time in the recent history of mankind, and I hope that you and your family stay safe, and that you're able to take the proper measures to protect yourself against this virus. Be tolerant of one another. Be kind to one another. Look out for each other. Call your loved ones. Again, ladies and gents, thanks so very much for listening, and I hope you consider sharing it with your friends. And may your dribble kick never hit the post. I'll catch you later. This has been episode 19 of A Yank on the Footy. My guest for this episode was Dani Marshall of the AFLW's Western Bulldogs. Don't forget that you can reach me at yank_on or at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Instagram and on Facebook at A Yank on the Footy. Again, thanks for listening, and please consider sharing this show with your friends and family.